Hi, Speculus here, and I'm just looking at the weather forecast, and it looks like we're in for another really bit of cold weather for the next few days. I looked ahead to the long-range forecast, so I didn't lose my will to live, and at least it looks like it's going to only be another few days of really cold, and then it's going to get milder. But in the meantime, we have all the issues that come with cold weather, and one of the questions we always ask ourselves in the winter time is, how are the horses coping okay when the weather's cold? And in our opinion, like we have some horses here, like the one behind me. She wears a blanket. We've got a few that wear a blanket, many more than I used to have wear blankets now. But we don't have a lot of shelter, and the weather's pretty harsh here in my neck of the woods. It might not be so where you are, but it is where we are here. And so when they're left in open fields with no cover, they can't last that long when it's really cold or really, really windy. Especially the wind. The cold doesn't bother them that much, but boy, if it's windy, it can be really hard on them. So we blanket quite a few of them. But the bigger question that we always end up asking ourselves, because we kind of know how to manage that, we just bring them in if it's too cold. We like the horses to get out every day regardless, but sometimes they're only out for an hour or so. Like today, it was so bad we had to bring them in quite a bit early, much to their they were really glad to come in, but then they're always sad that they're in. So at any rate, but the bigger question for us is, when is it too cold to ride them? And that's an interesting question in itself. If you look at the research, they're saying now that there can be damage to the horse's lungs at minus 10 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 14 Fahrenheit, but double check that if you want to be sure. But minus 10 Celsius, they're saying there can be damage to the horse's lungs. Now, I would suspect that is with horses that are working pretty hard. The thing with horses, let's see if I can turn this around. Hang on a sec. So you look at Lottie. I don't know if the light's not very good here, but if you look at where her nostril is and how far the air has to go, all the way down here, all the way to her lungs, which are, in this area here, right? So that's a long way to go. And so the air has a little bit of a chance to get warm before it actually gets to the horse's lungs. Like for us, the distance is a lot shorter, right? From our nostrils to our lungs is a much shorter distance. So the air can still be pretty cold when it gets into our lungs. So the horse, if he's just walking around, the cold air doesn't bother him because, the horse only breathes 8 to 12 times a minute. So he's not sucking in great amounts of air, and it's got that long track to follow before it, there's a big nostril. Anyway, it's got a long track to follow before it gets to the horse's lungs, so it has a chance to warm up. But the problem, of course, when we ask them to work, because now the horse starts to breathe more rapidly, and the air is coming in larger amounts, and he's not having as long a time in between to cool it down, or to warm it up, I should say. So for us, we go a little lower than minus 10 because our horses aren't working super, super hard. But the problem is they need a lot more time to warm up, because just like us, like in the cold weather, your muscles are so tight and sore that you really have to, walk for a fair bit of time in order to be comfortable to do any work. And that's pretty hard on the riders, right? To only be walking, you get pretty cold before you even get started. So the winter is always kind of a tough time for us. I always, want to encourage our students to realize that there's other things besides riding sometimes in the winter that you can do. Like there is so much you can learn on the ground about horses without actually getting on their back. And winter's a great time to do that. And so that's what I encourage. If you're not sure, if you think the temperature is a bit too cold for your horses, so that you could do some damage. And that's especially true. Like if you've got a horse already that is a little bit compromised with his lungs, like maybe has a little bit of a, COPD type of thing, they're even more at risk for the cold weather. But, if you've got a horse, or if you're just not even sure if maybe it's just too cold to ride, or even if you want to say that you're a bit, we can call ourselves a bit wimpy and that we don't want to ride in the cold, but there's still a lot that we can do to learn about horses and to work with them so that our connection, our bond, so to speak, gets even better. So that's kind of trying to be the bright side for this next little cold bit that we're having coming up. Hopefully we're nearing the end of February, so maybe we'll be, well, I guess we're only midway in February actually, but be that as it may, so I was just wishful thinking. Anyway, but we're hoping we'll get out of this soon. The next 2 weeks don't look too bad. So have a great week. Stay warm, and remember to thank your horse. We'll talk to you next week. Oh, and can I just say thank you very much too for everybody who said so many kind things about the passing of our dear sweet Dex. He was well loved, and I like to believe that he knew that. Okay, thanks. We'll see you next week.